Hi everyone, my name is Kristen Van Leuven, and today I'm going to show you how to paint this watercolor holiday card. The first thing you'll need is paper, and I'm using these pre-made watercolor cards from Strathmore. I like that they come already ready for me to paint on them. The textured side is on the inside, so I just flip it inside out because I prefer that side to paint on. For watercolor, I'm using my Daler Rowney set of watercolor paints, and the colors I'll be using for this project are Hooker's Green, Alizarin Crimson, Gold, and Indigo. The brushes I'm using are all from Princeton, and I'm using a 3/4 wash brush, a 3/8 angular brush, and a size 8 round brush. You'll also need water, paper towel, and masking tape to tape the card down. Because this design is an all-over design, I like to put masking tape around the edges. This not only gives it a crisp, clean edge, but when you're using so much watercolor on a piece of watercolor paper, it does tend to warp, and the tape helps prevent that. Using my size 8 brush, I'm going to mix up some of my green color. So I'm using the Hooker's Green and putting it on my tray here. I want about a medium mixture, and what that means is not super highly pigmented, but not really watery, a good mix between water and pigment. To give this green a deeper and moodier feel, we're going to add just a tiny bit of alizarin crimson, which is the complementary color to green. And you can see we're getting just a lot more depth in the green, which will be perfect for this card. So we're going to create our first stripe pattern, which are these large horizontal stripes going across the paper using the 3/4 wash brush. Now, something I want you to keep in mind while you are painting these stripes and this whole plaid pattern is that the stripes don't have to be perfect. They might be a little bit wavy. There might be differences in how the pigment looks or unevenness between the lines. But I think that lends to the overall effect of how cute the plaid pattern looks in the end. You'll see my stripes aren't perfect. I'm just eyeballing the distance between these horizontal stripes. And I think you'll like how it looks in the end if you just don't worry so much about the perfection of it. Now I'm picking up the angular brush and we're going to paint the vertical stripes using that same wash that we've already created on our tray. You're going to want to make sure that the horizontal stripes are completely dry so that the vertical stripes layered over the top will have that beautiful transparent effect that watercolor has. You can totally use the 3/4 inch wash brush for the vertical stripes. I just really liked the juxtaposition of the big stripes with the smaller ones. And you can see some of my stripes are a little bit wonky, but I think that's really cute actually. Once everything has completely dried, we are going to pick up our round brush. And again, we're going to create a moody green color using the Hooker's Green and the Alizarin Crimson to get that deep, dark color. This is totally optional. I think it looks really cute and adds to the plaid pattern, but I like painting really thin lines in those dark squares where the stripes meet. It has a nice, almost old-timey look to it, and you can see I kept mine really messy. They are uneven, some of them are thick, some of them are thin, some of them are barely there. I just did a really quick back and forth stroke with the very tip of my brush. Now we're going to paint the thin red stripes. So with our round brush, we're going to pick up some alizarin crimson, and we want this to be a very pigmented color. So you can see here there's very little water. It's really dark. We're going to add just a touch of that green mixture we had before because again, green is the complement and it just makes the red a nice, moody, deep color. So in the space between the vertical lines, you're going to paint two very thin red lines. Each line is going to be hugging next to a vertical line so that there's a space down the middle. And you're going to do that horizontally and vertically. So in the middle of those red lines, we're going to put a gold line. So you want to make sure there's enough space for that. So I'm using barely any pressure, just the tip of my brush, and you'll notice these lines are perfectly wonky, but I really love it. Now you're going to take that brush that you just used, you're going to get it a little bit wet until you have a very watery consistency on your brush. So you're pretty much just using the red you already had on your brush, and we're going to fill in the squares that we created when we did the lines. So I'm just going through, I'm not picking up any more paint, and I'm just filling in all of these little red squares. Moving on to the gold stripes, make sure that your brush is really clean or the gold stripes will be the color that you last used. You're also going to want to make sure there's very little water so that you can pick up a really high concentration of gold. Otherwise, it will be a little bit more dull. You want it to be really bright and stand out. So all we're going to do is just paint a gold stripe right down the middle where we have the red stripes. We're going to go vertically and then we're going to go horizontally. I did have to pick up gold a lot during this process because I don't want the gold to look dull. I wanted it to be bright and fresh. So I picked it up very often as I was painting these stripes. This part is optional, but I thought it was really fun. I have a scrap piece of watercolor paper and I painted using the indigo color Merry and Bright. My hand lettering is not great, so don't judge. But I thought it turned out pretty cute, and I'm going to glue it kind of with a little bump onto the front of my card. But I also wanted the edges to pop, so I painted a little bit of gold around the edges, and I thought it fit the whole theme of the card really well. You know, I love adding a little phrase to holiday cards. So I glued just another piece of watercolor paper to the back so that it bumped it out a little bit. And then I just glued it straight onto the front, pressed it down, and let it dry. Removing the tape on these full patterned cards is always my favorite part because you can really see it. But I think this turned out so good. Thank you so much for being here with me today while I painted this. I hope you learned some new techniques and that you take some of these techniques with you into your holiday card making this year. And I will see you all next time.